All right. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes, we see.
Yep, looks great.
All right, cool. So yeah, my name is Chris. I'm a core member at Curve Finance, focus on building the Asian market, and then been there almost 1.5 years. And then I'm also the founder of Mr. Block. So Mr. Block is a Chinese channel that focus on crypto and DeFi NFT tutorial videos. I've been doing it for almost 3 years now. Made over 350 episodes. I try to do 3 episodes a week just to, so everyone can catch up to the latest DeFi things. Has now around 20K subscriber, and everything I talk about is always in Chinese. So I try to connect kind of the West with the East as much as possible. I also run a Discord and Telegram and do like daily podcasts on some of the latest stuff. So we'll be happy, to do some interview if anyone's interested, and then I can translate into Chinese. All right, cool. So today I want to talk about, since I run a lot of these communities, I want to talk about much more of these like degen stuff. And then for the past few days, hear a lot of people talk about like the blue chips and tier one projects. So I want to talk about a fork that I thought it was pretty interesting, and they did a lot of interesting stuff, but not getting much attention. So yeah, the fork is called WasabiX, and it's actually a fork of Alchemix. So I'm a big fan of Alchemix. Did one of their earliest tutorial video in Chinese, and so I think already 2 or 3 board member have talked about Alchemix. So if anyone don't know about it, I think can go watch that as well. But I want to keep it short. So basically, what Wasabi does, everything like Alchemix, but what's different about it is that it started doing new strategy. So one of the cool thing about Alchemix is no liquidation, and then most of the debt paid by itself, right? So it has assets like Alchemist ETH and Alchemist USD. That's the 2 main asset, and it has only one strategy, which Alchemix focus on wire, right? So what Wasabi did different is that they leverage on multiple strategy. Different UI aggregator has different type of APY. So it uses Badger, Vesper, Idle, Pickle, and then where it has different token as well. So instead of just depositing DAI and mint USD, you can deposit stuff like USDC to mint USD. You can deposit ETH to mint ETH, or grab Bitcoin to mint BTC. And it's also cross-chain, so it's on Ethereum, BSC, and Polygon, and it implements something similar to the VCRV model called V Wasabi. So I'll show some image here. So currently its TVL across chains around 22 million. So like I said, it's really low. And what's interesting about it is that it has these different strategies. For example, it uses liquidity to mint LUSD. So almost the same as LUSD. And it's actually right now one of the, I guess, best and safest farm for any liquidity strategy. And it has this thing called transmuter. So same as everything as Alchemix. So it's always one-to-one back. There's no liquidation because you're minting the same asset. You're not borrowing anything else. So that if you are longing LUSD and you're big LUSD hold user, then you can utilize this strategy. And for example, if you are a long BTC user and you want to do the same thing on Alchemix, but since Alchemix doesn't provide a BTC strategy, then you can utilize Wasabi's BTC strategy. Yeah. So these are kind of all the strategy I have. You can see that on the left side, there's like different platform. So for example, DAI strategy, it has the same Alchemix strategy, which it uses Y-earn, but I also use IDO because most of the time, IDO will have a higher yields. And some of these, like Vesper and Badger, sometimes they have some incentive program, and those times you can capture higher yields. But if you just use one yield aggregator and don't dynamically change it, then you miss a lot of those yields. But also, when you dynamically changing your strategy, then that could possibly open up to more risk. We're seeing stuff happens on some yield aggregator getting attacked, right? So there's also risk here. But opens up newer strategy, yeah. And coming to the VE Wasabi part. So what's interesting about Wasabi is that it's one of the first few projects that implement the voting escrow system similar to Curve. The same thing, the reason behind it is obviously you don't want farm and dump. You want people to engage in governance. We've seen this, that's lacking in many other protocol where you just farm the token, you dump it, mainly because you aren't really requiring people to lock up. So on Curve, we see that in order to really boost your pool and gauge, you have to lock your curve up to 2 year or 4 year to have the 2.5x boost, right? So that's why we see a huge, TVL on convex, right? So it basically punish farm an aggregator that constantly farm and dump, right? So it's a really good mechanic. So we're seeing more and more protocol doing it, and it's interesting to see a fork that are doing it before the original, and having the V Wasabi where it kind of stopped the dumping, where if you want to farm up the entire APY, then you have to lock up more. And this also showed the development part because it's not easy to implement a locking mechanism. Yeah. In terms of security, so it's audited by, I think, 3 auditing firm. One is Certic. It has no exploit. It implemented the ETH strategy before, I think, Alchemix during my research. I see that they have 0 exploit, and then and I think all their strategy they implemented in like a safer fashion. So I saw in the community people talk about them, implementing on BSC, and they waited a bit and see that okay, BSC is safe, and they decided to just do with Alpaca. So Alpaca is a aggregator there. So what's interesting about Alchemix and Wasabi is that they always have to, they're kind of one of the DeFi Lego part that go on top of yield aggregator, which we're seeing in every different protocol. And lastly, I saw that they went on Solana hackathon and did a Solana tool. So similar thing, they implemented basically the same DeFi Lego part that we see here. And now they're already on, so if you see on the top right, they're already on each Ethereum, BSC, and Polygon. So they're moving really fast across chain. And lastly, comparison. So one market cap is definitely fully diluted. It's 700 million, and the other one is 5 million. And yeah, high risk. Again, nothing I said today is a financial advice. And always do your own research. And I think these things are a very experimental product. It's synthetic assets. So yeah, that concludes my 5-minute topic. Yeah. Any question? Am I still here? Hello?
That was great, by the way. I don't have a question myself here, but that was really interesting, especially knowing Alchemix and learning about this as a similar project.
I think we have a question from the YouTube audience. Want to ask Chris if this is sustainable yield.
So yeah, I think it's the yields are sustainable. Usually it depends on kind of the DAO token, right? And I think by implementing the V voting escrow mechanic, it usually makes it possible. We've seen that on Curve as well. Most of the yield here base have 3 types of yield on Wasabi. So one is the base yield. The base yield is from the yield aggregator. So that's from Y-Earn or from Vesper, Idle. That yield is definitely sustainable, right? It depends on if you're using Y-Earn and you're implementing the DAI strategy, then you should definitely use this. And if you're using BTC strategy, then you should use it, because there isn't one right now on top of that DeFi Lego part. So you for sure get that base yield. So let's say if you put in 10 BTC, that 10 BTC goes into Vesper or Badger, depending on which strategy you're using. So you're getting that base yield. And then you get 5 Wasabi BTC, which is like out ETH from AlchemX. And that you can stake it into their farm and farm Wasabi. And so that's an additional yield you get on top of what you already have. Or you can go into their pool, which is like WaBTC slash BTC, WBTC pool. They also have 2 other pools that they implemented on the Curve Factory pool. So similar to AlchemX. So yeah, and back to your question, if the yields are sustainable, I think the price has stayed at like $5 or $6 for the past 2 months, and then seems like the yield is still the same. Yeah.
I got a question. Now I lost my question. You know, Curve normally they also, you get some protocol fees if you lock up your Curve, you also get like protocol fee, like a dividend, but this doesn't exist here.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. Yeah, they do. So they charge like a percentage fee. So on the right side, you see there's an earning per day and estimated earning. So basically, they charge like a percentage fee, and that goes into the V Wasabi. So you see here, say if you lock your V Wasabi, you earn Wasabi, and you earn the platform fee and penalty reward. So what penalty reward means here is that, let's say you want to farm and dump, right? That's what happened on AlchemX most of the time, where people just farm and keep dumping because there's no reason for holding their token, right? What's happened here is that every time when you farm and you collect, there's I think 30 days wait time, where after 30 days you get your full claim. But if you want to claim it directly, you just want to dump the token, you can only claim 50%. So 50% of that penalty goes into the VE Wasabi locker that reward the people that are locking their Wasabi.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah,
because Ellipsis did this too. Ellipsis is a Curve farm on a Curve clone, or on BSC, and they do it too. And I think it's a very nice feature in a way. But I've got another question: is if I look in, I got some Curve because I have been liquidity mining, but now what's the cross-chain aspect here? Because what I see with Curve is that, you know, I don't vote like I don't vote because voting is expensive, and so for me it would make sense that you try to vote on a cheaper network. But of course for Curve it doesn't work because Curve is really you have to vote on mainnet. But how do they do it? What's the cross-chain aspect here? Are they just on every chain, or what do they do in this section?
So on cross-chain, the main here is to capture as much revenue as possible. So just like AlchemX, right? You earn fee and you can maximize your TVL. So I mean, naturally, AlchemX and Wasabi, they're pretty hard protocol to fork. That's why we don't see that many of AlchemX fork out there. So there hasn't been one that's done on Polygon and BSC. So Wasabi ended up going to BSC and Polygon. So basically it's the same Lego part, right? We see the same strategy on BSC. So you have Ellipsis, like you mentioned, and there's Alpaca. So Alpaca is like a wire and fork over there. They have, I think, like 1 or 2 billion TVL. So Alpaca has a strategy on Ellipsis, and you can basically replicate that strategy and put Wasabi on top of it. So before you deposit into Alpaca, DAI and goes into Ellipsis, then you deposit that through Wasabi. So back to your question, why cross-chain? Basically, they maximize their earning. Then what's this come back to their platform fee as well. They basically collect all of these platform fee, and then they bridge it back to Ethereum, and then give it as a dividend to VU Wasabi holder.
Okay.
But
governments is only on
Ethereum.
mainnet, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it would nice to have the cheap governments on a cheap chain and then maybe bridge it over to Ethereum. Because I guess people would much more vote then if it's not so expensive. But
Yeah.
but
I'm
I know mainnet is king. Of course, it's not so. Yeah, it doesn't work. So it's not so
I'm
easy
not
to
so
do.
sure about how they're doing governance. I didn't find a snapshot page, but I only see that they're doing the voting escrow. So they're basically boosting different pool. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
Yeah, great job. Great job. I think the one of the bigger questions that will come up in the future is so this is an interesting opportunity to me personally. I am very keen to understand like what will the Aladdin DAO community prefer, these like newer protocols that in this case, I mean, it is a I think there's like obviously there's some new innovations that they're trying to put forward, but I do get a little bit worried when like there is somewhat of a blatant copy paste of like a concept and whether or not like that protocol can continue to grow. And then if the yield is dependent on let's say a native governance token like the Wasabi governance token, whether that yield can hold up. But again, I think like over time, like we'll see like what's the appetite of the Aladdin DAO community. I wouldn't be surprised if the community is more like risk on and wants, bleeding edge new DeFi protocols. I also wouldn't be surprised if we get a more conservative profile of people seeking out like, the blue chip protocols like Curve that you work with, the ones that just have been more battle tested and sort of proven that it's unlikely that they'll be exploited in the future. So anyways, this was great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to go next? Otherwise, again, happy to, I'll fill in here wherever. Just want to give anyone the opportunity if they need to get on to another meeting.
Yeah, I'm good to go next, if that works.
Lucas? Yeah,